The cringe narcissist. It's a recurring theme with Harry's wife that people find her behaviour cringeworthy. This isn't always the case with narcissists. You may find with an upper lesser type A, for example, that whilst he or she is in your face, they're hugely entertaining and charismatic and likeable. That you, in effect, give them a pass for their behaviour, but it isn't cringe-inducing. Upper mid-range and the graders are typically polished so that they are able to insert themselves in a situation, but do so with gravitas, with charisma, with magnetism, so that people are hanging on their words, that they want to be involved with the narcissist. Invariably, they don't know that's what they're dealing with, but their behaviours are such, and that they segue so neatly with their surroundings, that people aren't naturally drawn to these individuals, want to talk to them, want to hear what they have to say, see them as similar, albeit perhaps more able and capable than other people around them. You will get some mid-range narcissists where they fit in terms of their caring. But with Harry's wife, she repeatedly makes a show of herself. And the simple reason for that is, as I've explained many times before, is that her narcissism managed to do the job of getting her to ensnare a ginger prince with everything that came with that, but then suitably elevated to an international, global, worldwide platform with all of the attendant exposure, scrutiny, and expectation, her narcissism thereafter could not deliver. She was, in essence, totally promoted beyond her abilities. This has meant that in many instances she has behaved in a manner which is toe-curling, cringeworthy, embarrassing, as people have watched her. For instance, the way that she turned at the Freedom Gala and said, "I'm proud of everything he does," with that smug rictus grin upon her face. The way that she behaves awkwardly, the USO debacle, perhaps the best example of how she doesn't fit in with her surrounds, and when people don't want anything to do with her, how she doesn't know what to do in response and makes herself look ridiculous. The way that she appeared to be talking to herself when Serena Williams' mother ignored her. The fact at the recent Invictus games, there were instances where Harry was talking to somebody else and the other person didn't want to speak to Harry's wife, but she continued to behave as if she was involved in the conversation. The recent Kevin Costner fundraiser and charitable event, where she looked like a fish out of water as she attempted to take the microphone from Purple Robed Lady and then wandered about on the stage, looking completely out of place, picking up an award which was there for Harry to present and pushing Harry around. I'm sure that you can think of similar instances of when Harry's wife has looked completely out of place, and therefore, with her behaviour, whether it's her ridiculous wasp up the arse dancing, or flapping her hands like a coked-up seal when she applauds unnecessarily, or the ridiculousness of her behaviour with the polo trophy, I'm sure that you can come up with many other instances of her cringe-worthy behaviour. The simple reason as to why she behaves as a cringe narcissist is because there are many instances where she just doesn't know how to behave because her narcissism hasn't had the opportunity, nor has it had the capability to mimic what has gone on. When she first joined the royal family, other members of the royal family recognised that it was a considerable leap for someone who had a cultural divide, she was from another country, that came from a different social class, and therefore had to learn about the conventions and the protocols. Rather than taking the offer of help that was repeatedly advanced to her by the likes of Queen Camilla, as she now is, from Queen Elizabeth, from Sophie, from Catherine, she rejected all of that because her narcissism told her she knew better and perceived those attempts at offering her help as threats to control, and thus she cut off her own nose to spite her face by rejecting them. Thus, her narcissism pooh-poohed the offering of understanding and help about how she could behave in such situations. And therefore, it didn't take on board this information, which it could then mimic and utilize at a further stage to make her look as though she fits in. Instead, it deems that it's appropriate for her to blow kisses at people, elbow her way in, flap her oversized hands around, and therefore make an absolute show of herself. Of course, she doesn't see this, because her narcissism tells her that what she's doing is entirely appropriate. She responds instinctively, thinking, this is good, this is cool. After all, I'm Harry's wife. I'm the main person all here. But the opportunities that she had in order to mimic and actually learn, her narcissism rejected, meaning that when that cherry picker goes off as via the imitation game, it largely picks up the wrong package to then provide to her, and she stands out a mile with regard to her inability to fit in, thus inducing cringe in many of the people watching her. I know that you find the video analyses very useful in that regard. So here's another opportunity to see her inducing cringe in those watching, and it comes from the recent Harry's Wife games. Here comes the footage.
You happy?
Yes, very
You happy? Well done. Well done. Well done. Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm so happy.
I've got something for you. This is from our team. Team Invictus Poland volleyball.
Thank you very much.
Because the team is always strong. Thank you very much. Thank you for this what you are doing.
Thank you.
It's great. And you, thank you for supporting me.
Bravo!
So come on, everybody. Drużyna to nasza siła! Drużyna to nasza siła! Drużyna to nasza siła, siła, siła! 100 lat, niech żyje, żyje nam! 100 lat, niech żyje, żyje nam! Jeszcze raz, niech żyje, żyje nam! Niech żyje nam! A kto? Harry! Happy birthday!
Now, as you know, the Invictus Games was meant to be Harry's gig, and Harry's wife should really have only been there in a supportive role, if at all. We have seen, as a consequence of your own viewing and my video analyses, how she sought to take over it, driven, of course, by her narcissism. In this clip, we see Harry congratulating members of the Polish team, asking them are they happy and saying well done. Harry's wife is following him along the line. The first point would be that really it would only need Harry to do this. He's the patron of the games, and therefore he should be the one that congratulates the team. But naturally, Harry's wife's narcissism can't let it rest there. She needs to be involved because, after all, she's Harry's wife, and thus she follows him along the line, asserting control over the tertiary sources, which are the competitors, and drawing fuel from them by way of their responses to her. Presumably, the team captain then wants to present something to Harry by way of a gift and explains what it is, as he's clasping Harry's hand and Harry listens. Harry's wife, of course, is lurking in the background, and then the captain magnanimously also thanks Harry's wife for supporting him. Now, of course, that's not what Harry's wife is really there to do. Harry's there to support her because she is the grand fromage. She is the big cheese. She is the leader. But in this instance, the fact that the captain turns his attention to her and acknowledges her and provides her with fuel demonstrates that captain is under control. And while she won't like the idea that she's seen in a supporting role, it suits the facade in that moment for her to smile as a receipt of the fuel and then to place her hands, again, the physical assertion of control over Harry, by showing, look, this is how I support him, by pushing him around. At this juncture, she's followed behind and she's gained some fuel and the individuals are under control. At this point, the Polish team put all their hands in, and they're speaking, and the team captain is speaking in Polish. Notice the difference of the body language of Harry and Harry's wife at that point. Harry readily embraces it. Harry's wife is uncertain. What do I do? That's because she has no natural connection to those around her. Harry recognizing it's a hands in. He doesn't speak Polish, but he realizes that what you do is you put your hand in and you listen and you go along with it. But Harry's wife is hesitant. She looks around as if she's seeking guidance and then puts her hand in, very much as catching up. That shows you that her behaviour has that slight lag in that she doesn't naturally know what to do in such a situation, and her narcissism is playing catch-up as it swiftly evaluates what's going on and what she should do. Harry just puts his hand in there, doesn't think twice about it. But for Harry's wife, it's almost what's going on, right, okay, I put my hand in too, do I? And thus you see the very short, but it's there, time lag in terms of her response to the situation, which is a consequence of the absence of her emotional empathy. Thereafter really comes the cringe. The Polish team then sing something to Harry. Perhaps it's a version of Happy Birthday or some kind of congratulatory song. I'm sure if there are any of the viewers who are Polish, they will enlighten me as to what is being sung to him. And they're clapping away and singing. But notice Harry's wife. Rather than stand to one side and just listen, as Harry is doing, she feels that, oh, I have to join in. And thus she brings those oversized seal hands together, clapping out of time, and even attempts to speak. You can see her mouth go a couple of times. She doesn't speak any Polish, but her narcissism, frantically trying to make herself relevant, causes her to clap out of time and try and even say what the Poles are saying. It is hilariously cringe-worthy. But once again, it's because her narcissism doesn't understand how she should behave in such a situation, so you get this incongruous reaction. And then when she realizes that it's a song that's being sung for Harry, because they mentioned his name at the end, she immediately has to show, I'm with Harry, therefore your praise for Harry is actually my praise, as she puts her hands on him and rubs his chest. She's demonstrating her ownership of him and that he is an extension of her for the purposes of drawing in the response of the Polish team that's actually directed at Harry and not her, as she attempts to subconsciously claim it for herself. Again, being the narcissist, inserting herself in a situation which was somebody else's situation because she can't be left on the sideline. Thus, you in effect get two great big dollops of cringe. Her failure to join in at the appropriate time with the all hands in together, and then her attempt to join in with the song, even though she's no idea what they're singing, and then trying to make it about herself once again by throwing herself over Harry with her hands rubbing on her chest. An excellent example of various facets of the narcissism, all culminating in the cringe narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.